Welcome to another episode of Living with Purpose, where we bring in amazing people from all over the world to share their purpose journey. Today, we have Adnan Mahmud, who is the CEO of Forward, which is a technology company that bridges government resources to communities in need. I am going to ask Adnan to share a little bit about his journey from Bangladesh to being an entrepreneur. Adnan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Akhtar. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
So, talk a little bit about how you landed up in the US from Bangladesh and your journey, which has been actually very interesting in terms of how you have cultivated your purpose, articulated your purpose, and even through your technology career, have continued to show up with purpose in different ways.
Father had a career in the civil service in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh has always been traditionally or historically been known as having a very corrupt government. As a child, I had a front row seat to how information and resources can be manipulated by a few to benefit even fewer. And kind of the backdrop of my upbringing. And so I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so wanted to get away from it as far as way as I could. And for me, that meant, going to the US for my undergraduate studies. So I was lucky enough to be able to come out to the US, do undergrad, grad school, and then found myself working at Microsoft in Seattle, which is where Akhtar, you and I obviously met many, many years ago. At Microsoft, I was able to learn a lot about technology, developing software products, etc. But my background was always at the back of my mind. And so about 7-8 years ago, I decided I wanted to venture out and explore the intersection of technology and impact. Didn't really have a specific idea, except for just I wanted to be in that space and see what can be done. And through a bunch of consulting projects, landed on this idea of a company that worked with local governments, US, to make sense of their data. Worked on that for about 3 years or so before the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, our business changed a bit because our customers, which were local governments, were really struggling to respond to the pandemic and bring assistance to their communities at the scale that they needed to. And they asked us if we can help them scale up their public assistance program to respond to it. And we were able to build a set of products and features that help with that specific ask. And we launched Forward. So that's what we do as a company. We help local governments run public assistance programs like rent assistance, grants, food assistance, loan programs at scale in their communities. So in the last, 3 years, we have administered over $1 billion around communities.
So just so if some of our listeners may not know, Bangladesh has just gone through this massive transformation where the previous prime minister was asked to leave, Mohammed Yunus, who started the Grameen Foundation and the Grameen Bank to provide microloans and was the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006, has become the interim head of this coalition group that they are now trying to bring some semblance of normalcy back into the country and set it up for elections. But Adnan, your journey kind of started a little differently while you were at Microsoft and when I met you. Talk a little bit about what that was and the founding of Jolkona and your interest in social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, and how entrepreneurship can lead to change.
Yeah, so I was working away at Microsoft, loving my job and the opportunity that was affording to me. And family was still and are still living in Bangladesh. And so I still go back often. And so while at Microsoft, maybe this was 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, on a trip to Bangladesh visiting my family, I went to the cemetery to pay respects to my grandparents. On the way out of the cemetery, I came across a father who was walking in carrying his, must have been like 6, 7 year old dead son. And it was obvious that the father couldn't afford to give his son a proper burial that the Islamic faith required him to do. And so this passing kind of really impacted me. I didn't know how to react. I didn't do anything that day. I went past him, but it stayed with me for months. And what it made me realize was that I didn't have to have, a massive career, work for like 30 years, and then try to give back. There are things I could do right then and there that would have been impactful, like helping out that father that day, which I didn't. So I started a nonprofit organization called Jolkona, which allowed young professionals like myself back then to make small donations to nonprofits around the world. Our big differentiation, or I guess the proposition that we had, was like every donation gets a feedback. So it's not like a project level feedback, which you are used to seeing maybe for a project, like here's what the project status is. But for us, we wanted to partner with organizations who were committed to providing a feedback for every single donation that would come in through Jolkona. And I did that while I was at Microsoft, kind of like Microsoft was my day job, Jolkona was my weekend job. And that grew a lot significantly. We were able to fundraise for it during Microsoft Give campaigns, through the employee giving programs. We were able to find volunteers through the Microsoft Giving programs, and it grew significantly. I would say we're doing, we're supporting 180 projects in over 30 countries around the world. And then we realized that a way we could have even maybe a bigger impact was to work directly with these leaders of nonprofits around the world. And we realized that they could use more training and more skill sets because they were doing a project of passion, and there were maybe knowledge gaps that they had that we thought we could bridge. Yes, we could give the funding, but being in Seattle, we had exposure to a lot of expertise, whether it's through Microsoft's programs or the Gates Foundation or Starbucks Foundation or REI or Theo Chocolate. There are all these Seattle establishments that were really at the forefront of social entrepreneurship. And so Jolkona started shifting entrepreneurship bootcamp program where we would bring entrepreneurs from around the world into Seattle for a 2-week intensive boot camp to learn from other social enterprises that are based in Seattle and take those back with them to their communities to upscale and diverse. So that was my first foray into impact, which eventually led me to like realize that like, hey, I want to do this like full time and leave Microsoft to explore, like I said, impact and technology. But before that, I had this little little experience of starting and running a nonprofit organization as well.
So, just for our listeners, I did serve on the board of Jalcona for a while we were supporting and training these entrepreneurs from around the world that were doing social impact work. Pivot, talk a little bit about why purpose is important for you and how you are using purpose, especially during when times get tough.
To me, purpose is important because it helps you get through difficult situations. And I don't think that's just a professional, it's not just a professional aspect. Even a personal aspect, I think purpose is very useful because you'll in life face multiple situations where you might be conflicted or you have a hard decision to make or you're not sure what direction you should choose, and both directions might seem beneficial. So for example, from the professional side, we work with local governments to help run programs, and oftentimes we come across programs that we have never done before, and we have a choice to say like, hey, we want to go explore a new area that we haven't done before because we think we can do that well, given what we have done in the past. But we have a small team, and this will be very, very hard for our small team to take up a whole new know-how and a program approach. or we can go with the things we have done before, and maybe the program that we've done before is a smaller size versus a new program is a much bigger size. And sometimes that's really hard to decide. And again, if our purpose, our mission is to accelerate, we call it accelerate equity, accelerate opportunities and access within communities for our partners. And so we have to make sometimes the hard decision there is like, hey, we already have a customer that's already working with us. Let's go with them and do another program with them versus picking up a whole new customer where we might not have done a program before. Right. So, and those kind of discussions can be hard. It can be argumentative between the team members. And when you have this kind of a very clear target of the purpose, whether it's organization or personal, it helps to kind of cut through those noise and help focus the team and align all the people involved.
And again, just we spend some time with Forward, Adnan and his team to help them craft not only the individual purpose statement, but for the organizational purpose. So that, and it's great to see how you're using it. This is actually a great case study for me too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the full purpose statement for us is to be the trusted partner for accelerating access and opportunities in communities.
Yeah.
And we live by that. We make decisions by that, and then build a culture, a company culture around that.
So to end, I'd like you to kind of share one golden nugget, a principle that you live by that our audience could benefit from as they live their life purpose or they go on their purpose journey.
Oh, there's so many. I think the one I would like to share is maybe the most recent golden nugget that I have come across, and something that I found to be very helpful and very powerful. And it kind of connects back to being guided by purpose. And the nugget is be better, not bitter. And I find myself often in situations every day, whether it's in the office or even at home, right, where something happens and you have two ways to react. And it's very rarely that I only have one option to react. I always have multiple ways to react. And I find this nugget to be very useful in thinking through those options. It's like, hey, where am I coming from if I take option A, and where am I coming from if I take option B? Like I said, like, it's not just personal; it's on career, office work too. So, just to give an example, I've got two really young kids, a 10-year-old and 8-year-old, and they are very active, very kind people, and they like playing board games a lot. And so every time they have a free time, they're like, hey, I want to play game X or game Y. Sometimes maybe I'm a little tired, or I've got a work deadline for the next morning, 8 a.m. presentation, and I have to respond to them. And I think part of sometimes, I have to just catch myself like, hey, like if I say, no, I'm busy, like where is that coming from? And the tone, right? Like is a tone coming because like, why don't they know I'm busy? Or like, or do I feel bad about myself that I have to say no? Or should I say something more like, hey, play a game, but can we pick a short game versus a long game, but still make time for them? So I think that's just a very simple example. But even when I think about that choice space and how I deliver it, I can make a very distinct determination. Hey, am I coming from a space of being better as a father, or being bitter because something else is affecting me that they have no control over? Taking that extra few minutes to think through it, I've found that not only I show up better for myself, but also for everyone else involved in that experience.
That's just such an awesome nugget, right? Be better, not bitter. And if we did that in just everything that we do, the world itself would be a much better place.
Yeah, like I don't consider myself knowledgeable enough for the whole world situations or other things, but in my personal life, I've found, since I've started using this, there is hardly ever a decision I'm making that doesn't have a choice space that can be broken down by those two.
Yeah.
I've never found it yet. So which tells me it works well. It holds up.
Yeah, I think it's a great nugget, right? So to our audience, right, focus on being better, not bitter. And with that, Adnan, thank you so very much for being on this podcast. And again, join us for another episode of Living with Purpose. Purpose is that renewable source of energy that drives humanity forward. Live it, apply it. Again, be better, not bitter. Adnan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Akhtar. I really appreciate you. And just want to say thank you for being such a good friend and mentor over the years in so many steps to my journey. And just really appreciate our friendship and our relationship that we've had in Seattle over the years, but I'm sure it'll go beyond our Seattle years. So thank you.
Take care.